The main theme of this game is glass, and that not only applies to the story and the art, but also to the characters. They are fragile and easily broken and easily driven into madness. Welcome, you lovely souls, to my review of Cendrillon palikA. And before you ask, no, this game is not available in English and it probably won't be localized soon. It's only available in Japanese, but I thought you might still be interested in it and what Japanese games are available and maybe what localizations to wish for. As always, we start with the setting of the game. It's a fairy tale setting where Tokyo is a city made of glass due to a curse from 200 years ago. And not only does it mean the city is made of glass, but the citizens have to always wear a piece of glass on them when they want to leave the city, otherwise they will turn into glass and die. And the same applies to outsiders who want to go into the Tokyo glass city. They would turn into glass as well and die. But even if you leave the city while wearing glass, you still have to return before 12 midnight, because otherwise you will turn to glass as well. One day the main character Hairi is visited by an anonymous wizard who tells her he knows a way to break the curse and that only she is able to do it. But in order to succeed, she will have to join forces with one of the love interests to help her. So after a very short common path of 2 chapters that can take about half an hour to an hour, you choose with which of the love interests you want to cooperate in order to break the curse. 3 of them are locked at the beginning. Those are Eda, Lindo and Kashka, the wizard. You can play Eda and Lindo after you have completed 1 route and Kashka after you've completed 3 routes. And when you start them, you will get a spoiler warning. I go through the love interests in the order the developer recommended them to play. So I started with Clone. He's a calm tsundere and a glass manufacturer who is good in baking cake. But doesn't really want to have anything to do with the glass people. So this is why Heidi has to fight a lot to convince him to help her and to accept her. But that leads to a very slow and natural development of their romance. And another aspect of the route is kind of a little murder mystery, because there are occurrences of people suddenly dying and turning into glass, though they left the city while actually having glass with them. As I said, it felt a bit like work, breaking through Clone's shell, and after that I was actually a bit disappointed because he was an empty shell. He is an empty walking trope. Yeah, and I couldn't feel attached to his character. The little murder mystery gave the route some well-needed tension, but as it was not connected to the curse, it also felt kind of pointless. Second is Xian. He lives outside of the city like Clone, but together with Yuden in an old church, and his most beloved hobby is pouring tea, and his one and only character trait is being nice. And his story was about him having amnesia and nightmares. And that's literally all I have to say about him. I paused his route and put the game down because I was so bored by this one-dimensional character whose only character trait was that he's nice. But again, okay, the mystery about solving his amnesia and his nightmares was okay, but still I couldn't connect with his character. Yuden lives together with Xian because he owns this church where he conducts his research. He's a researcher interested in the curse and basically every puzzles of the world, and he just lets Xian stay so he can make him tea. At the beginning, most of the time, he just ignores the MC because it distracts him from his studies and he's only interested in research. So he's also a bit of work to get to know, and his story is partly about him discovering love and what it means to love and what it means to let other people into his life. His was actually my favorite route because of the voice actor. He also voiced Yosuga in Olympia Soirée, and I actually enjoyed his character the most because I just love a slightly angry scientist. The last of the not locked characters is Natora. He is a gatekeeper at the gate of Tokyo and the younger brother of Lindo, and he loves gummy bears and cola and his brother to death. So that means his story is mostly about figuring out his relationship to his brother, because he definitely has brother issues, and in spite of his looks and his first impressions that were more manly and maybe even a bit scary, he turns out to be really childish and a puppy dog and he's sometimes made fun of by his friends because he can be a bit slow and certainly naive to some extent. Dindo is the guard of the clock tower where the main character needs to enter in order to break the curse. He's very friendly and appears like a gentleman and is supposed to be liked by many women, and his hobby is catching insects and especially butterflies. As his route is locked, it unravels secrets about his character, but those secrets made it very difficult for me to like him and to connect with his character. So I couldn't relate to the love story at all. And despite of the secrets that should probably shock you, it still felt superficial to me. And the next locked route is Eda. He's a friendly bookworm working at the library, and he's also the younger brother of like the noble family in the city. And I liked his love story a bit more because he liked the MC from the start and really was proactive to get to know her and to get her to like him. Kashka, the last route, is a weird wizard that suddenly appears in the main character's room, that just comes and disappears however he wants to, that enters without knocking, and that crashes at her home without paying. So that might seem really weird, but still I found him to be a likable character because he isn't self-aware of his weird actions. And I also found the dialogues between Kashka and the MC Hairi to be the most funny and witty, and as he's supposed to be played last, his route reveals much about the curse, but if you have played all the other routes, it wasn't as surprising as it was probably intended to be. And that also was caused by, again, the superficial character design in general. He also had the secret and the curse had a secret, and those secrets were supposed to surprise you, but they were like one secret and that's it, and that's the character. Like all the characters have one character trait, one secret, and that's it. Like I said, all the characters feel kind of one-dimensional, and although the routes were quite long, I couldn't feel connected with them, and that might also have something to do that there weren't many romantic scenes, but just like they're sitting next to each other scenes. And each route has a kiss scene, but no like romantic tension scenes. Overall, the stories are quite self-contained except for the information you get about the curse. They're very fairy tale-like, very soft magic-like, what means that some things aren't explained clearly or in much detail, and they all have this overarching fairy tale theme: love can do everything. So if you don't like this premise, this fairy tale, love can solve anything, then you might be really disappointed. The only thing I like about the characters is that they all, and I don't consider the spoilers because it's kind of the premise of the game, they can all turn into yandere mode. They all have a crazy ending. You have a good ending, you have a crazy ending, and then you have some sudden death or sudden whoops, that went totally wrong endings. I sometimes like the crazy endings even more because they gave some character to those one-dimensional pictures. One more adorable character is our MC Hairi, because she knows when to act, when to speak up, and supports the allies in every way she can without giving up and with her unique strength. The art of the game can be summed up as pink and glassy. Starting with the music, I would say it's good music that sounds like a fairy tale and that sometimes sounds fragile or like it would drop on glass. I think it's really pretty and fits the tone of the game. It's also very calm and mysterious. The only thing I missed was like a more action-y soundtrack. I know there aren't many action scenes, but I kind of missed some tension in some of the tracks when something a bit more dangerous was happening. The dominating color in the CGs was often pink, but the CGs were all pretty and sometimes had like interesting perspective or more interesting scenes, but still, though many of them had a dynamic feeling to them, some others could also seem stiff, and for each boy you have at least one crying CG. And also the background art is pink or lilac and very pretty and detailed. And you often have flying pieces of glass like flying through the background. It's quite pretty. I almost forgot to mention the voices. And that might be because they are all good, but they did not particularly stand out to me.
ならこれからは目を離さないであげてね。
ああ、お前誰？
ナトラ、初対面の女性にそんな言い方は失礼だろう。
そうかな。とにかくそれ以外に答えはないだろう。
じゃあ幽蓮に見せてよ。二人とも今する話でもないだろ。
Would I recommend to buy this game, at least to learn Japanese with? Also, not really, because it is a fantasy setting and it uses some unusual words. So then, who would I recommend this game to? And as reluctant as I am to say this, I wouldn't really recommend this game. So overall, you have bright colors, relaxing music, but a story that is obviously intended to be tragic and emotional, but for me, couldn't convey that feeling at all. And the romance is not really swoon-worthy. To me, as pretty as the art is, as shallow are the characters. Though I actually think that the writers must be talented because they have like 10 additional little conversations with some of the characters together, and they're totally hilarious and smart and witty. But I can only recall like 1 or 2 conversations that were like this in the main game, and I wished there were more funny conversations or smart conversations in the main game and not only in this 10 additional scenes. And in those 10 short stories, the characters seemed even more fleshed out than in the 10-hour main game, and I don't understand why. It's really disappointing. And this really shows that this game has so much potential, but it wasn't used to its fullest. I mean, the art is perfect, the story is interesting, the character designs in and of itself are interesting, but for some reason it was executed poorly. To say something positive, you still will get your money's worth with its 7 roots, but if you're either looking for a deep story, multidimensional characters, or a swoon-worthy romance, you will sadly be disappointed by Cendrillon palikA.